Yeah, and I think, Chris, there are still some things you can use for motivation as well. For one, not that anybody should care in the building what he thinks, but like you got people like Paul Feinbaum basically saying, "Why is game day even going to Columbia this week?" Like
Yeah.
I'd lean into any motivation I can find in this one, but when you first got game day, I still remember being a kid, being in high school, I guess, when they got game day the first time. And it was Steve Spurrier's Florida team that came down here and dismantled a really good Carolina team. And but just the excitement of having game day in Columbia for the first time, it was crazy. It was insane. You're only 2 games into this year. Did it kind of work out for you a little bit on the schedule in terms of there not being just a mega other game this week? Of course. But hey, take advantage of the opportunity to put your program forward, to put your best foot forward. It becomes a huge opportunity for you to show the college football world what you have going on. And, I don't know if every recruit is sitting out there watching game day every morning. Like, I think that part's a little bit overblown. But is the college football world still paying attention to game day? Yes. Does it put your program in front of the right eyeballs? Yes. And to me, this kind of, my whole thing, my like Waffle House Index version of college football is, are they picking your game at the end of game day every week? Like, remember when Spurrier was here and had it rolling, Carolina and whoever they were playing was one of those kind of top 10 or so marquee games that at the very least they're going to be talked about. And they're going to say, well, can South Carolina beat Georgia, or can Kentucky upset South? Like, what's going to happen with South Carolina and Steve Spurrier this week? You want to be relevant in college football. The way to be relevant in college football is either to beat the teams that are the blue bloods or to push your way into that mix yourself. And it's still just one game. We're still just week 3. We still got it. This thing's got a long way to go, and this team's going to have to continue to take major strides forward to have like that kind of special year. But you do have an amazing opportunity this week to steal some spotlight back onto your program.
Yeah, and more important on the recruiting front, Wes, to just get those guys on campus, right? Instead of having them sit at home and maybe, number one, they might be at another marquee game, on visits. A lot of these guys play football on Friday nights. Go visit somewhere on Saturday. The ones who aren't, maybe they catch some of game day in between a workout or in their spare time. You would rather have them on your campus. And Shane Beamer alluded to it today. And he's not just saying it. There is a good visitor list that has continued to grow. Wes added some more names this morning to that list on GamecockCentral.com. It's a pretty solid group, right? And it'll probably get better from now until Saturday at noon. But yeah, I mean, it helps you to have that profile being on game day and being consistently part of the conversation, right? It's a selling point that you can have to recruits. And obviously one of the reasons that we're talking about, South Carolina's pass rush, right? Look at recruiting. Dylan Stewart, a 5-star guy. You want to be that type of program to lure more guys like Dylan Stewart to your program. The more Dylan Stewarts that you have, the better you're going to be at football, right? Coaching matters, development matters. At the end of the day, the best programs have the best players. So it really is all about recruiting. And I know we'll talk more about recruiting this week too, Wes, by the way. Will be fascinating to see what the returns are. It probably is going to help South Carolina wins. It's going to help if they have a great atmosphere. But after kind of a little bit of lull in recruiting for maybe the past few weeks, can they make some headway there? I think that'll be interesting.
This is also, I think, in my opinion, when you're building the foundation for the guys that are going to visit your school officially, whatever it is, like 9 months from now, when you get to the other end of it and they're taking those official visits and they're kind of deciding between 4 or 5 schools that they're, the school they're ultimately going to go to. You lay the foundation when you're talking about your 2026s right now, even your 2027s that are already high profile guys, getting them on campus now. Most of those names, unless they're local in-state guys, maybe you never heard of this 2026 from Georgia who's in this weekend, or this 2026 from Virginia. Maybe you don't have a reason to follow them quite yet, but if you're South Carolina in-house, you are laying those foundations for the guys that are going to be highly interested in your school later on as they start to narrow their lists. So I think that's what a great environment can do for you. And Chris, we even talked in the summer and leading into this season. You and I have always told people, hey, one game does not decide for a recruit. However, we talked about the importance of getting off to a quick start in this season, because some of these guys that maybe are committed to other schools, you look like a Michael Skinner, who you offered a little bit later down the line, but is heavily considering South Carolina. Maybe some of these guys you narrowly missed on originally, they're being recruited by schools that frankly had better records than South Carolina last year. But frankly, where maybe Carolina feels good about the relationships going into those decisions, can you grab the attention of someone, whether they show up or whether they see it on TV, whether they're just watching from afar, like, oh, hey, now South Carolina's 3-0 with wins over Kentucky and LSU. That sort of negative recruiting aspect that you get from opponents saying, oh, they were 5-7 last year. Well, if you can already have 3 wins in your pocket with Akron next week, you probably can change the narrative a little bit and potentially, look back at some of these 2025 guys and maybe try to make a little headway there.
Can drive home your vision, especially if some of those guys are committed to other programs that have, taken some losses recently. That type of thing can certainly help. You want to have the chance to resell your vision, right? First couple years, you think about Stewart, right? So South Carolina got on Stewart really early. I remember the first visit or two that Dylan Stewart had, like when he came to camp over the summer, a couple summers ago, people were like, wow, Dylan Stewart, like, seems like that's going to be a good player. He's got a lot of offers. Cool. Like, he'll probably go somewhere else, but good that they got him on campus. But then lo and behold, he's on campus 10 times, and South Carolina's winning games in 2022, right? Like, that showed progress. Now, they took a step back last year. That obviously hinders your progress. But if you can reestablish your momentum, you can go back to those guys and say, hey, 5-7, that looks like it was probably a blip on the radar, right? We had a bad year. We're moving back forward. And so that's very important in recruiting. Obviously, that momentum and the relationships are important. And they had really good relationships with some guys that they missed on, as you said. Can you drive this thing forward and get it going back in the right direction? This weekend would be a big, big step in doing that.
No doubt, man. So, all right, like we said earlier, Beamer talked, players talked, and we'll get to maybe some more recruiting stuff later on in our final preview. I'll have a recruiting rundown at some point this week with Kendall Smith, where we will talk recruiting only. So be on the lookout for that. Gamecock Central YouTube. If you're already a subscriber on Gamecock Central, head on over there. You can see the full, maybe not full list for what it will eventually be on Saturday, but the full list of confirmed guys right now. And Chris, if you're not a subscriber and you want to be a new subscriber, you can use code SPURSUP for 50% off, right?
You absolutely can. 50% off, promo code SPURSUP, and gets you 50% off your first year. That promo code, Wes, will not be here for forever, so you should probably jump on. We would definitely appreciate it. And you can come see all our work at GamecockCentral.com. You can keep up with. We're gonna be busy on Sunday, Wes, one way or another, analyzing the game, hitting up recruits, seeing what they thought. Of course, I'm sure everybody hopes that it's a Gamecock win, because that will be a more fun Sunday and lead to some better returns